Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you were joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day. If you're feeling independent, hopefully you are. Hopefully you are taking advantage of time off. If you're back to work today, hopefully you enjoyed your time off. Hopefully it's been a settling, calming weekend into an unusual Tuesday, July 4th. But, you know, there have been people who are not comfortable, who don't feel good, and that's a lot of the employees at ESPN. So many names that you know, but also so many names that you don't know. As we know, a lot of on-air talent have lost their jobs. Susie Colbert, Gene Wojciechowski, Jalen Rose, Keyshawn Johnson, Max Kellerman. The list goes on and on and on and on and on of ESPN employees who've been there for quite a long time who no longer are employed by ESPN. So in a box, I tried to think about what the reasons for this layoff was, and it's easy to just say, "Oh, well, they're bringing in," but no, because you just got rid of people that you now have to replace. So either you're planning on making people that are there work harder, or you're going to replace those people you got rid of with people who are cheaper, right? That's it. Like Jalen Rose is great. It's not that Jalen Rose is not good at his job. It's that Jalen Rose probably costs a lot of money. And ESPN said, well, can we get somebody else to do what Jalen Rose does for less money? And maybe more. Can we get somebody to not only do what Jalen Rose does, but do more for less money? What's the ROI? What's the return on investment with Jalen Rose? Is Jalen Rose moving the needle enough? And I don't just mean to use Jalen Rose. You could do that with every one of the people, because I love Jalen Rose, and wherever he goes, I'm still going to follow. I think that most likely the landing point for Jalen Rose will probably be Grantland, because he was a part of that whole emergence, right? So I think that's a possibility. But then I also started thinking about the trickle-down effect, right? Like, what happens when things start trickling down? What happens when, right? So these people are gone from ESPN. ESPN is most likely going to hire other people at much cheaper rates to do much more, because what they realized is, oh, well, if they're not someone who comes in with a ready-made following, then we can build them up the same way that we built up a lot of these other personalities that we have. Rachel Nichols is wildly popular, but I remember when Rachel Nichols first got to ESPN, nobody knew who she was. She was doing obscure stuff. They brought her along over years and years. They built up a fan base, right? I don't really know about that fan base for Malika Andrews. If I was her, I would just assume that her and her sister and whoever, they must not be making a lot of money, because nobody's watching these sports for Malika Andrews and her takes. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. She's not ready yet. Like, she's not there yet. But if she is allowed to continue to grow, continue to be more comfortable in her own skin, in her own personality, whatever that personality is, because we really don't know, she can get better. Some people take to it faster. I thought Maria Taylor, when she was with ESPN, took to it faster, and so you saw the personality come out faster. So with all that, it goes to where the trickle down is and the people who should be really like concerned, right? Because a lot of the talk is that, well, a lot of these ESPN people are going to end up at FS1. Like Fox Sports 1 will get better because they're going to pull a lot of this really good talent from ESPN. And I said, wait just a minute, right? Do all of these people who've been underneath the thumb, underneath the leadership, underneath whatever it is of ESPN, do they want to jump in to another company and do the same thing? Or is it time for them to have some ownership? Is it time for them to have some gravitas, some skin in the game? And that's where we all come in at. Because all of us small podcasters, all of us small media members, the people who are hoping to one day get to the ESPNs or one day get to a platform that's going to take our baby, our podcast, our show, our digital property, our digital IP, and put it in a bigger platform. We all just got jumped in the queue by a bunch of people who have way more following, way more name, a lot more experience, a lot more gravitas. Is somebody going to pay me to do my Talk Spicy podcast on a platform that's bigger, or are they going to pay Jalen Rose? They're going to pay Jalen Rose. I got jumped in the queue. All of the people who are like me just, hey, we're low rung of the totem pole. We do good work. You know, we write well. We were in every space. We're just looking for that one opportunity for someone to allow us to do everything we do in one place. We just got jumped in the queue by a bunch of really, really talented, really awesome personalities. Nobody's talking about that. Those people who got fired, especially the ones that we know, they're going to be fine. Number one, they were all making tons of money. And unless they didn't take care of their money, which is none of our business, they're going to be fine. Those people who are behind the scenes that got fired, there's a good chance they're going to be fine. You know why? Because everybody in the industry knows their value, knows their worth, and there's most likely going to be places for them to fall and get into, right? They're going to understand how to do the stuff that we, as low rung of the totem pole people, don't understand. So it's interesting as we sit back as media members, as we sit back as people in this digital social space who do these podcasts, who do these webcasts, who do these, have all of these different digital properties and go, man, if Jalen Rose wants to start the Jalen Rose show tomorrow, he's going to find that DraftKings spot that I was hoping for. He's going to find that spot at the Ringer that I was hoping for. He's going to find that spot at Grantland or at Meadowlark or at any other entity out here that's giving money out for podcasters or for people in the digital space. He's going to find that money before I do. And if he's willing to work at the level that I'm willing to work at, he's going to have a lot of success. I saw a podcast the other day from Bill Bellamy. Bill Bellamy out of the blue with a podcast. It wasn't that great. But he's already getting stars. He's already getting made men, made women in the game on his podcast. You know why? Because he's a known entity. And if he continues at it, he's going to be good. The Raw Room is two dudes that most people who follow football would not know unless you're a diehard football fan. Darren Bates wasn't no star. So unless you were a Tennessee Titans fan or a diehard football fan, you wouldn't know who he was, but he's a former NFL player. They're former NFL players. They're already up over the 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. They killing it. Why? They have great personalities. But if you look at their first shows from what they're doing now, they're so much better. They've been allowed to, you know, they've allowed themselves to grow. They didn't just give up because they weren't having making a lot of money. Like T.I. got into the podcasting space a couple of years ago with Expeditiously, and I thought it was a great podcast. I thought he had the acumen for it. But T.I. is a guy who likes to allow his money to make money. He doesn't necessarily want to put in the hours, the sweat equity, the continuity that you need with a podcast. So his podcast, he's decided to not do it. But if he had kept on doing it today, he started it, I believe, during the pandemic around the exact same time, maybe even before I started my podcast. If he would have stuck with it, he would be one of the top hip hop music podcasters in the game. Because he has the name, he has the gravitas, he has the personality. So when we see the market, the space, all of a sudden get hit with all of this talent that not only has the following, the personality, the experience to be good, but they also have resources to start their own stuff. So even if they don't get a deal right now from DraftKings or get a deal right now from The Ringer or a deal right now from Grantland, so on and so forth, even if they don't get a deal from somebody to do this, they can use their own money. The same thing you and I do, right? To get fired up, they're going to use their resources to get the best equipment in the world. Their stuff's going to look good. It's going to sound good. They're going to put it up on YouTube. And because they're Jalen Rose, and because they're Susie Colbert, or because they're Gene Wojciechowski, they're going to have all of the numbers immediately. They're going to hit 100,000 subscribers no time. It might not mean a lot to the people who are on the front end, but I know what life would be like for me if I had 100,000 subscribers. I'm a schlub over here trying to get you guys to get me to 4,000. Hey, get me to 4,000. And by the way, while you're at it, go ahead and go to YouTube if you're not watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. My analytics are telling me, hey, a lot of your subscribers are not the ones that are watching this podcast. It's a lot of people who don't subscribe to you. So if you're watching, go ahead and subscribe. But my point is that they're going to hit the 100,000 subscriber mark quick. And then based off of how good they are, it's just going to continue to go. Very similar to the pivot. When the pivot formed, they came off of I Am Athlete. Fred, right? Channing, personalities, but they were not the driving force behind I Am Athlete. They came in, they brought in another name, another guy who understood the biz, right? In Ryan Clark. The three of them hit the market. They got a sponsor, Happy Dad. They used those connections. They opened up, hit the ground running, and now they're out of here. I want to say they've got it. I know they're over 500,000 subs. I know they are. They're murdering it. They have personalities and connections that get them in front of people or people on the camera that matter. You don't think Jalen Rose is going to be able to do that? You don't think Vince Carter can do that? You don't think that Susie Colbert, who's been in the game forever, can do that? Gene Wojciechowski, who's written for everyone, one of the most respected journalists in the world, can do that? If anybody should be shook, it should be us. It should be us, right? Because now we just took another step down in the pecking order. But it's not a time to panic for us. It's a time to get refocused. Your content's got to be better, right? You got to be able to show your personality. You got to be able to tell people who you are. You got to be able to show them what it can be before they're investing money. How are the people who are getting to the top level now? They're doing it on their own. They're coming in with a ready-made following, and they're saying, hey, with your platform and my following, we can do this 10x. And that's why ESPN is paying all that money to one person now. That's why Stephen A. Smith hasn't gone anywhere, which is interesting too, because I was having an argument with the white person on Twitter today. And I always think it's interesting when white people tell black people about the race card. I don't think a lot of times you guys know what the race card is. I think you just say it just to say it, right? But here is what Stephen A. was accused of using the race card. This was the quote he said. This ain't the end. More is coming. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I could be next. Let me tell you all something. Don't ever, ever, ever in your life as a black person take anything for granted. I told you before, when white folks catch a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. Now that was perceived as if he was playing the race card. And the person said he didn't like it, but also gave Stephen A. props for trying to protect his job because he thinks that now that he's played the race card, he won't get fired. When have people ever really cared about firing somebody and them saying, well, I got fired because I was black? That's never happened. But I'm really want to more talk about the quote, right? Because what he's saying isn't playing the race card. What he's saying is facts, right? In society, at a place like ESPN, when the demographic is what it is, right? Predominantly white, young to middle-aged men. That is the demographic of ESPN. The 18 to 35, you know the thing, 18 to 35-year-old white men. That is the ESPN demographic. Well, when you go out and you bring in guys who fit that demographic, guess who don't fit into that demographic? Jalen Rose, Vince Carter. Yeah, they're former athletes, but as people who are talking, they're not going to be able to resonate with the 18 to 35 to 18 to 40-year-old white male. So when he says something like, don't ever in your life as a black person take anything for granted, where's the lie? There have been many black people who thought they were set. They thought they were good. They thought they were Gucci. You think Jalen Rose thought he would be a part of the cuts? You think Keyshawn Johnson thought he would be a part of the cuts? These people have been down for ESPN as ESPN has made the meteoric rise. He says, don't ever, ever in your life as a black person take anything for granted. I understand what he's saying. I told you before, when white folks catch a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. Well, what does that mean? That means that every white person you fire, there might be 2 to 3 black people fired. Well, go and start looking at all the names. Look at all the names that have been announced. Tally up the numbers. I'm not going to do it, but tally up the numbers. Who would know better than him? He's on the inside. It's not playing the race card, because playing the race card would say, oh, ESPN seems to be out here getting all the brothers out of here, and I could be next. I'm not above that. That would be playing the race card. Him saying, hey, ESPN is just getting a bunch of people out of here, and because I'm black, if they'll get Susie Colbert out of here, they'll get me out of here. There's no problem with that. If they'll get Gene Wojciechowski out of here, they'll get me out of here. There's no problem with that. That's what he's saying. He's saying that black people are not protected from this, especially because we're black. And the demographics, not us. I thought it was pretty simple. That's not playing the race card, because what people think playing the race card is looking for sympathy. There's nothing about this statement that sounds like Stephen A. Smith is looking for sympathy. In fact, if you're being smart about it, Stephen A. Smith is saying this on the Stephen A. Smith show that doesn't even happen on ESPN. His podcast, his show isn't an ESPN show. You know why? Because ESPN is long punted on podcasts. They didn't think it was worth putting money into. They've punted on their morning show. The flagship of sports media was that morning 6 to 10 slot. That morning 6 to 10 slot was the flagship of sports media. For years upon years, it was Mike and Mike. And then all of a sudden, Mike Greenberg, like a snake, bit Mike Golick. I want to do these other things. Essentially, Mike Greenberg said, I wanted to have a show without Mike Golick. And so they gave him essentially his morning show just without Mike Golick and add in a bunch of other personalities. But it's just him playing point guard as he does, throwing his 2 cents in it. That's all he's not doing anything new, anything innovative, anything expansive. He's got a show with more people on it with a revolving door of characters. He just didn't want to do that with Mike Golick anymore. Do I have proof that that's what he said? No. Don't kill me. Allegedly, that's what happened. But, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. He left Mike and Mike. He left Mike and Mike, get up, start super early. It's on for like 3 hours. 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't know. I don't even watch it. But I gave it a shot back when when they first started. It was going to be him and Jalen Rose and Michelle Beadle, and we quickly realized that it was just going to be him. Jalen Rose had been reduced to this ridiculous like role where he wasn't really allowed to like show his personality as much. And Michelle Beadle, who knows what happened with Michelle Beadle? So talented. It's so weird. She was so talented, but there's clearly something that rubs people the wrong way about her, or that she does in her personal. I don't know, but she's so good. She was so good. Always. Hey, shout out to you, Michelle Beadle. I don't know what happened, but I hope you're doing well. I think I've seen a couple of things that you've done. She's another one, though. She gets into her bag, she finds her niche, and she decides she wants to grind and do a podcast, webcast, whatever. She could do her own thing. And that's my point, right? But for Stephen A., he's looking at this and saying, look, man, I feel like I might be untouchable, but maybe I'm not. And he's already preparing himself for life after ESPN. That's why he has a show on the FanDuel network. That's why he has a show with another entity. Because at any point in time, he knows, especially now, I can be cut. You think for a minute that Mike Greenberg is worried? You think Mike Greenberg's worried? Nah, homie. Not worried. Not worried. You think Scott Van Pelt's worried? Nah, homie. Not worried. It should be the same for a guy like Stephen A. Smith, with how much he's done and how much like sweat equity and how much of profile he's brought. But you never know, right? You never know. It's not a race card. And I really wish white people stop telling black people when they're playing the race card. Because you don't even really understand what the card is. You don't understand what the card is. I'll never play the race card, but I have been accused of making things racy. Guess who I've been accused of it by? Never, not once, not ever has it been a minority. It's always been a white person in my comments, in my mentions, talking about some, stay away from the making it racy. I like you all the other times, so when you do this, I don't like it. So, hey, stop being black, because when you're black, I can't really rock with you. Like, what? It's amazing to me, right? And I don't even rock with Stephen A. Smith like that. I'm not even a Stephen A. Smith fan like that. I think too many times he's extra harsh on his own people. So for a guy like Stephen A. Smith, who is extremely harsh on his own people, to be accused of using the race card, he can't win either way. Hey, he's doing things that's supposed to endear him from the other side, only to be vilified by the other side who thinks he's playing the race card. See what I'm saying? It's tough out here. It's tough out here for everyone. If you have a podcast, if you have a webcast, if you have a show, if you have an intellectual property that's in the media space, you better be on top of your game, because the world just got introduced to a lot of talent, and you're going to have to deal with them. I'm going to have to deal with them. Everybody in our space is going to have to deal with them, because they're not just going to disappear. They're not just going to sit back on their money. You know why? Because they've got something to say, and they've got people who want to listen to it. They've got something to say, and they've got a bunch of people who want to listen to it. Even if they're not here for a long time, you're going to have to wait them out in the short term. You're going to have to wait out the flames, because they're going to be burning hot. They're going to be burning hot. See, here's the thing, right? And this is what we'll see about the pivot. They came out the gate hot. Why? All the great names, what they're doing, they're not I Am Athlete. They're not trying to be the real husbands of the NFL. They're not trying to be like a reality show and be messy and all that. That's not what they're here for. So a lot of the big names are comfortable coming on. But are those big names going to continue to come on? Will they run out of big names? Every once in a while, they drop a show in with just those three. But because they didn't start that way, because they started as an interview show, when it's just the three of them, the numbers don't look the same. They're either going to have to get comfortable with just having conversations each week, the three of them, or they're going to have to continue to book regular guests that move the needle. Because some of these guests they've had on, we're like, I don't know. And the numbers support it. So either they're going to drop into an area where they're comfortable and this is what they do. We're just an interview show, right? We're just an interview show. We're just a have conversations in the locker room type of show. Or they're going to be able to transition where it can be them three regularly, and every once in a while they bring somebody in. Talk Spicy is a podcast where I'm talking. I don't have a whole lot of time to have a bunch of other people on here talking. I'm out here getting these words off. If I decide to bring somebody in to talk with, my people know that's not normal. That's just something different. They're not going to expect me to do that all the time because they came here to hear me talk. That is what's been set in the 300 and almost 400 episodes that I've done. Right? So it's not really that much. Well, yeah, it is. It's that many. So that's what we have to do. We have to figure out our space. We have to continue to work. We have to continue to get better because these people aren't going anywhere. They're going to be around. We're going to have to deal with them. And it'll be really interesting to see how everything plays out. I'm excited because I never wanted anything easy. So I'm excited. I want to see what happens. I hope you guys are excited out there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. We do this thing a few times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. Until next time, peace.